Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harris and I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books, and today we're here to review Mushroom Blues by Adrian Gibson. So this book came out in 2024 and was part of the SPFBO competition for that year, and actually that was the year that I was a judge for SPFBO, so this has come second in the entire competition, so it was going to be a tie, but due to a tiebreaker, Mushroom Blues came in second place, which is pretty good for debut author Adrian Gibson. As far as I'm aware, they've not written anything else. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. There are going to be some elements of the story that I'll need to discuss in order to kind of give you the pitch on the book. But nothing that I'm going to talk about is going to spoil your particular enjoyment of this adventure. So, what's Mushroom Blues? Mushroom Blues is described as a fungal punk noir. I would say is that this is kind of I would say a crime thriller with this mushroom flavour. Let's kind of go straight into things, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that I do like, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that I don't like. So this is kind of a mixed review from me. I know this book has been fairly popular. I mean, it has got second place in SPFBO, but I actually had quite a few problems with it for the majority of the kind of opening period of the book. It kind of dissolved, a lot of those problems kind of faded into the background once I got into the book and got towards the end. But for me, the opening was a little bit weak. But I want to talk about the good stuff first. So I really like the characterization of the main character, Henrietta Hoffman, and Koji, the main supporting character. I think that both were really well drawn characters. They both had kind of things to find out and to be revealed over the course of the book. In classic noir fashion, you know, they had mysteries, they had dark secrets, they had things that they didn't want to do. Hoffman in particular, I think, is particularly well drawn, and she's the point of view character, the main point of view character. So she kind of has to be, and if she wasn't particularly well drawn, that would not make a great book. But in her particular instance, I felt like she was written really consistently across the book, which I genuinely really liked. She has a bit of an arc across the book where she kind of, at the beginning, really hates all of the mushroom people, and by the end, really loves all the mushroom people. And that arc is very, very quick for how short a period of time the book covers. It's hard to massively criticize this, because you do get instances in real life of someone being like, I hate all people who are like this, and then they meet a person who is, of that subculture or minority or whatever, and then over time they grow to really like that person, or they realise like, oh, everything I thought about this group of people is actually not true and kind of a lie. The Koji, on the other hand, you never get his point of view, which I do think is kind of a shame. I think that this book would have really benefited from some chapters from Koji's point of view, because the experience of the fungal characters, the mushroom people, is quite unique and interesting, but we never really see it how they see it. We only see it from this kind of outside perspective, and the human outside perspective is very accessible, so very widely appealing to readers. But one of the things that I really like about things like Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive is you get to see a non-human people from their own point of view, and how they understand their traditions, their culture, and the abilities that they have. We'll come onto that sort of stuff later on. But moving on from characters, the plot itself, I did really like eventually. It took a little while to get going. I think the first 30% of the book didn't really grab me. I think if you guys have watched my weekly updates, you'll see that I did kind of struggle with the first 30% of the book. And because I was reading it with the idea that I was going to do a stream with Philip Chase about it, because we'd talked about it ages ago, I was like, well, do you know what, I'll push through, I'll get to the halfway mark, and if I still am not loving it, I'll DNF it and say to Philip, let's read something else. But I did finish it. I ummed and ahed on the rating on it, I have to say. So the end of the book felt like solid 4-star material, but there were several sections of the book that I felt kind of dragged it down. But this review might sound really negative, but I mean, I want to reiterate that but the end of the book felt like a really solid 4-star. But there were, like I say, I have a lot of criticisms here, and the kind of thing that I want to praise about the book is the cleanness of the prose, really well written, cleanly written, very accessible prose, exactly how I like my fantasy writing to be. I do have, every now and then I'll want to dip in something that's a bit more flowery, a bit more purple prose, but primarily I like my fantasy to be kind of fun, fast-paced, accessible, and that's definitely what this book is. The beginning is not that fast-paced actually, but it becomes that eventually. There's lots of really good action in this book, and the action is really well written. I'm never reading Mushroom Blues and going like, oh, who's where, what's happening in this scene. The action is really well blocked out, really well portrayed, and I think that that's like the one thing that really needs no touch-up or improvement is the action and the way that we view the world, the language used to describe the world, and you get a really strong sense of place in this book, and it's not just like, oh, it's this but mushrooms. The actual, the discrete like wards or like districts or whatever they're called of the city of Neo-Kanoko all kind of have a bit of a flavour and a vibe, and that does come across in the writing. I think I'm going to come across it now. I think it's best to just get it out of the way. I want to talk about the thing that I had, like my biggest problem with the book, which is that it's playing this secondary world, but the mushroom, the fungal culture, is not a one-to-one map of Japanese culture, but is extremely close. One of the best things about fantasy is that you can use fantasy to portray these new and unique cultures. And one of the big things with this book is that the fungal culture, the mushroom people, their culture is not new. It really is just like pop culture Japanese, and it's not like it's like a deep understanding of Japanese culture layered with this mushroom stuff. It really is kind of like these are the aspects of Japanese culture that are popular and well discussed online, and in films and TV and stuff, and that's what I'm going to portray as the mushroom culture. So like the mushroom people are like very honourable, and they think about honour and family and ancestors and that sort of stuff, and they eat Japanese food. They eat things that are like ramen, sushi, curries, things like that. They have a pictographic language, that might not be the right term, but their language is like symbols. They're they're also called Hopponese, and I think that Nipponese is like something that people have referred to Japanese people as. Yeah, it's one of those things where it just constantly hits you throughout the book, and that was one of the big things that was almost brought this book down to be a 3 for me, is whenever there would be something they'd be like, oh, that's an interesting aspect of this whole mushroom thing, there would be like a drawback to it. So I'd be like, oh, you know, he's talking about like, oh, traditional cuisine in the fungal society, and then it's like, oh, this is ramen, like, or this is like a curry sort of thing, you know, or like rice balls. And I did end up on the side of, it's a shame that this isn't like its own unique culture that has grown up with the like the concept of the, you know, the mushrooms and the mycelial net and how connected they are, and that has kind of changed the way their society works. I've talked about this a few times in the past. If you read Watchmen, the comic, there's tons and tons and tons of world building stuff layered on what is essentially our world, which is kind of how Mushroom Blues is. And these layers and these changes are all kind of pulled out from the pinpoint of, well, okay, so you have a world where there is a superhuman who's essentially a god. How does that change the world? And you've got things like, for example, Watchmen set in 1986, but they have electric cars because Dr. Manhattan has made the rare earth minerals that were needed to create usable batteries for electric cars in the 80s, and he's fixed it. He's worked that technology. Electric cars are now widely spread, widely used. And there's loads of little details like that. But one of the things I would have loved about Mushroom Blues is if you started with the concept of, there's mushroom people, the mushroom people are connected via, you know, this fungal net, this mycelial network. They can, you know, they can sense each other and all this sort of stuff. I feel like if Adrian Gibson had started there and built out, rather than what it feels like, and this probably is not how he went about this thing, but it feels like he's gone, I love, you know, anime style Japanese culture, and I love you know, mushrooms, you know, and like, there is nothing bad about that, and most readers will love it. I think that, again, this is a really good first experience of fantasy because you have these easy to digest analogues for the characters, for the species, as it were. Although this is a secondary world, this could just be Japan. So there's a lot going on here, where like you could give Mushroom Blues, for example, to someone who is not familiar with fantasy worlds. You could give Mushroom Blues to somebody who like loves Blade Runner, you know, and that is a really strong positive in its favour. Like I've said it before, I really love accessible books. I love books that anyone can read and enjoy and understand. And I think that the easy map of Japanese culture, Hoppanese culture, is really good. I like that is there. For me, I wanted something to be a bit more out there, you know? Like, if you've got mushroom people, what does mushroom people begat, you know? Like, I have a mushroom guy, the mushroom guys can all sense each other. Would they have the same taboos? Would they have the same, you know, would they have the same traditions? Would they have the same thought processes around stuff, you know? And I don't know if, you know, in like the ideal version of this story, maybe it would be a bit more different, a bit weirder, a bit more interesting. It doesn't also, you know, there's also a thing where the because the culture is very like traditional Japanese. You even have like a Yakuza analog called Kinoko Rose, and they work well as antagonists. But I was kind of expecting I was kind of expecting it to join back up to the bad guys are actually the colonizers, but it didn't really work that way. Like, I was expecting all the way along that, like, you know, the colonizers were going to be revealed to be the villains, and it never really happens. There is a lot of criticism of colonialism, but not a particularly deep criticism of it. It's very much a like, colonialism is bad, colonizing is bad. Henrietta, the main character, is like, I'm a colonizer and I'm bad because I'm unwanted here. And I was kind of, I would kind of like to see something a bit different there. And again, yeah, colonialism is terrible, and I think it would have been really interesting for like the conspiracy, or for there to be like a big conspiracy and it to have linked back to the colonizers, you know, whereas the colonizers are kind of like, they're in some frames they're kind of framed as like, these guys are like, oh, they're saving, you know, they're gonna save people, they're gonna be the good guys or whatever, and like, oh, there's some bad apples in here, like their leaders are bad, but like, you know, these people are just kind of living their lives and doing their jobs, and like, that kind of makes sense, but like, I don't know. I didn't feel like that was enough of a theme for me. This, I want to stress again that I did actually really like this book, and despite having a couple of strong criticisms here, like, I would have liked more to have been made of the colonialism plot. I would have liked there to have been more made of the mushroom culture, and for it to be less of a easy map to Japanese culture. But that's purely for my personal tastes. Like, you listening to this review probably already have an idea as to whether this might be your thing. And if you think it might be your thing, and especially if you're one of those people who actually like is into Japanese culture, so if you like, you know, Japanese movies, fiction, anime, that sort of stuff, this also could be a really good gateway for you into fantasy if you're not a fantasy reader. One of the other things as well that I really liked about the book was the kind of the way it all weaved together in the end. While I was kind of expecting that, you know, the colonizers were going to be the bad guys and it was all going to be a big conspiracy, it kind of didn't end up being that. But I think that the book being able to surprise me like that was something that I really liked and would really commend the book for. There were multiple twists in the story where I was like, I've worked it out, I think I know what's going on here, and I was wrong. So there were a few really good surprises in the book, multiple times where, like I said, I thought that I knew where the plot was going, and I just found out I was completely wrong. And overall, the story itself really worked for me. Like I said, the one maybe minor negative that I had about the story and kind of the characters was that I do wish that Hoffman, the main character, that her arc had been a bit slower and longer, if that makes sense. Like, she basically goes from a point at the beginning of the book where she's like, I hate fungals suck, to the book where she's like, I like fungals maybe more than humans, you know? And I kind of wish we'd got her to like maybe over the hump, but not all the way there in this book, especially seeing as this is the first book in a series apparently. So there's not many places for this character to go from here. So I'm looking forward to checking out the sequel to see whether Adrian Gibson has any more kind of ideas or thoughts around Henrietta and her future storylines. I'd love to see the next book maybe POV from Koji as well. Maybe, you know, change the narrator over. I think that would be really exciting to kind of see the world in the way that he does. I think would be really interesting. But that's everything. So yeah, I did end up rating this a 4-star. While I said that, no, did I end up rating it a 4 or a 3? I think I might have gone for a 3 actually. But despite, you know, having a lot of criticisms, this is a really, really good debut. I've enjoyed this a lot more than a lot of debut books that I've read. And while I have a lot of things that I would have kind of tuned up a little bit maybe if it was me, there's a lot of stuff that I think is really really highly recommended. So like the story was really well written, the prose is great, and the characters are quite well drawn. So yeah, really looking forward to checking out a sequel for this if one turns up. And we'll definitely be on the lookout for future stuff from Adrian Gibson. I think that you can tell from this debut that he's got he's got a strong future in the fantasy world. And if his next series that he writes is a little more fantastical, I think that would be even more up my street. So thanks so much for watching. Have you read Mushroom Blues? Pop down in the comments below and let me know what you thought. If you have not liked this video yet, then please give it a like. If you have not subscribed to the channel, then please do. I'd love to have you as part of our little community here. And for everything else, I'll speak to you on Wednesday. Goodbye.